And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Joining us now on Panel Time, I never called it Panel Time before, Jane Velez-Mitchell, founder of JaneUnchained.com and best-selling author of Addict Nation, and Tom Borelli. He's a Ph.D., Dr. Tom, and contributor for Conservative Review. All right, let's start with the news that broke today, and that is that there are no charges being brought against the police officer, the Cleveland police officer, who fatally shot 12-year-old Tamir Rice last year. The grand jury met. They've been meeting since October, and they decided that the fact that, for those of you who don't remember, the cops received a call, 911 did, of somebody waving a gun and scaring people with a gun. Cops were never told that it might possibly be a toy gun. They pulled up on Tamir Rice, and within 2 seconds they shot him. The gun did not have a red tip, which would have indicated it was a toy. They told him to put the gun down. As soon as he did not, they shot him, and the grand jury agreed that the cops acted appropriately. Jane, needless to say, you probably don't.
Well, first of all, let me say my heart goes out to the family of Tamir Rice. My condolences. This is a horrific tragedy. But I think that society is being offered a false choice, either to say that this 12-year-old boy deserved to die, which obviously he did not, or the cops are somehow demonic and out to kill children, which they are not. What's happening is we are a society drenched in violence and drenched in guns, real guns. There are more guns in America than there are people. So people are paranoid. Cops, particularly on the front line, are paranoid of somebody whipping a gun out at them. And I can understand that. I was a police trainee for one day, and I failed because you have to make split-second decisions. What we need to do is reduce the violence in this country, reduce the number of guns, and bring it down on the saturation of violence, and we will have fewer incidents like this.
All right, Tom, she used the word cops being paranoid. I don't think it's paranoid. It's proper police procedure. And Jane, I assume when you say you failed, you were put in a situation where you had to shoot to survive, and you probably were dead, not failed. You died, and that's what would have happened to the cops. If
well, I shot the wrong people.
Right, all right, okay. In that case, you shot the wrong people. My point is, Tom, that, 9 out of 10, at least 9 out of 10 of these instances that escalate with cops, if kids had been taught, hey, never disobey a cop, never run from a cop, then these situations wouldn't escalate in the first place. It wouldn't take place. Secondly, what the heck's this kid doing waving around a gun like this? They say he was warned, I don't know by who, that if you take that gun out, it's going to be trouble. And he took the gun out. It's a toy gun, but who's raising these kids?
Well, first of all, it's a real human tragedy, and hearts and prayers go out to the family. Look, this is inner city. It's an inner city problem. There's a lot of crime, and unfortunately, I think this decision, which was done by a grand jury, is only going to run into the Black Lives Matter crowd, and I think they're going to use more fuel for more protests, more outrage, and it's not really justified because the rule of law fell in terms of the grand jury.
Jane, why doesn't our president? Why doesn't one so-called, liberal black leader like the Al Sharptons of the world, the Jesse Jacksons, Black Lives Matter, if I don't call them leaders, but they're there, why haven't you heard from one of them even once? Obey the cops, never run from a cop. That way, if kids were brought up on that, 90% or more of these whole things would never have happened.
I don't know if you've ever been a teenager. Perhaps. I don't know if you've ever been a kid, but I think that to say that this kind of incident would only happen in a poor urban neighborhood is nonsense. I just think that the police reaction might have been a little different if they were in a gated, exclusively white community. They may have had a different reaction. And when you say the Black Lives Matter is a hashtag, what they're really saying is that Black lives also matter.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're saying that's racist.
Exactly,
they're saying, hey, Jane, that sounds good. But Jane, when confronted when O'Malley said all lives matter, he got booed up the stage and called a racist. So you might say that's what they're saying, but that's not what they're saying, Tom.
Well, you know, getting back to the other point for sure, when you're raised in an urban area, and I was, you do what the cops say when they say it, because otherwise you saw consequences that were not pretty. So that's common sense. That my parents taught me that, but more important, the streets taught me that. The cops might not always be right, but when they say something, you do it. Otherwise, the penalties can be severe.
I don't want to be painted as anti-police. I love police officers. I believe that they are absolutely essential for the safe functioning of society, and you better believe that I want cops on my street protecting me. Again, I believe this is a false choice. I think the problem is America has become addicted to violence.
The root of the problem is the failure of progressive policies to properly employ people in the urban community. We have failing schools, high taxes, too many regulations, big businesses being scared out of the inner cities, and Obama's policy is going to make things worse. His climate change EPA policy is going to raise electricity prices, putting more pressure on urban families, and they allowed a wave of more unskilled immigrants that are going to displace jobs for the black community. So it's the failure of progressive policies are going to make things worse.
Climate change?
What about climate change? That's responsible for terrorism, isn't it?
Let me tell you, there's going to be more war related to diminishing resources because of climate change. Yes, America is.
I got a question for you, Jane. We got 20 seconds. If that whole thing is true, that the Bill Nye the Science Guy and all them say that there's no more water on the farms, so they become terrorists, how come Christians don't become terrorists when they lose their water on the farms?
Let me tell you
Yeah, that's what I thought. We're coming back, part 2 of the panel. Don't go away. More with Jane Velez-Mitchell and Tom Borelli.
They can cry all they want. The fact is that's where the threat is coming from. And we can say that 98, 99% of Muslims in this country are good people. I'm actually swearing in the first elected Muslim on Long Island to office. She's a good friend of mine. So this is nothing against Muslims. But the fact is that is where the threat is coming from. And we're kidding ourselves. We have this blind political correctness which makes no sense.
All right, much more on this whole issue with Peter King coming up in Give Me 5. But joining us once again on the Malzberg panel, Jane Velez-Mitchell and Tom Borelli. And Tom, Peter King, he's out there. He's seems like a lone voice sometime, saying that we have to get into the mosques. And, you know, the perfect example he points to is when the FBI went after the mafia, they infiltrated the mafia. They sent agents into where these people were and into the families, and that's how they got them. And this is how we have to prevent attacks.
No, he's absolutely right. I really agree with Mr. King, but he's right on this one. Human intelligence is crucial to keep us safe. And the government has to do it legally. It's see something, say something. I believe the Zanarif brothers had said something that was damaging in a mosque, and the other people attending the mosque didn't say anything.
Right.
This is really what we need to do, protect Americans. The risk is here in America. It's up for Americans to stand up and for law enforcement to do it properly, but surveillance is required.
Jane?
All right, so the Catholic Church experienced a pedophilia scandal that was very real. Would you agree with the FBI going in and infiltrating the Catholic Church to find pedophiles?
First of all, that's apples and oranges. And it wasn't a pedophilia scandal. Many believe it was a homosexual scandal. Very few of those kids were prepubescent. They were teenage boys. So let's get that straight. And let's get the definition of a pedophile straight. Prepubescent, and these boys were not.
But here we're also talking about people being killed.
Happening in the Catholic Church.
We're talking about here people being killed from radical Islamists, and they're among us. And how do we find them? Just sit back and wait to get shot?
By the way, Jane, I'll tell you this. If it was Jews that were blowing up bombs and blowing up people in this country, and the FBI decided to send an FBI agent to infiltrate my synagogue, I'd welcome it. A, to either clear us, or B, if there's someone in there who was up to no good, let them get them. Why would any
Let me
decent
say
person
this.
object?
The government's mistake is mass surveillance. Stop surveilling all American people.
I
Stop
agree. We
listening
should-
to our phone calls. Stop going through our
Focus where the
emails
problem
and
is.
focus on the suspected terrorists.
Right.
The one who came in and was involved in the San Bernardino bombing, they did not check her social media.
Correct.
They did not go through her emails, and they gave her this
Correct.
fiancé visa. That's the problem. If you collect too much information, you're going to have too much to deal with.
No.
You've got to focus.
But-
But the U.S. government is focused on getting
Right,
information
they should
on
put
all
more
of
of
us,
the efforts
which
in the
Edward
mosques where the
Snowden
problem
revealed.
can be.
Right. So
Right, I agree, Jay.
Like Tom is saying, don't surveil everybody.
Correct.
Surveil where the problems have been, and the
Right.
problems have been in the past in the mosques.
But I think that if you focused on situations like choke points, like somebody coming in on a visa, and if those people
true.
had really done their job, that woman would
Right.
not have
So,
gotten
but that's
in
not
here.
exclusive.
But they're
Tom.
already
It's
here.
not Tom. It's not an either or.
It's not either or. It's all together. It's not mutually exclusive. We have problems. We have to screen people coming in, including
Right.
refugees, and slow that process way down, like Mr. Trump has suggested. And then domestically, we have to do a better job.
All right, speaking of Mr. Trump, we have a minute. Tom, start with you. Latest Rasmussen poll, Hillary and Trump tied. They were tied a month ago, about 37% each or 34% each. 22% say they'd vote for a third-party candidate. What's going on here?
That's got to be a terrifying poll for Mrs. Clinton. The voters in that poll said they don't trust Mrs. Clinton with respect to Benghazi, and they think she broke the law with respect to her email problem. Nobody wants a liar and a felon in the White House.
I don't know. I'm sure Jane would disagree. Go ahead, Jane.
Nobody wants somebody as a president who doesn't know what the nuclear triad is. Donald Trump had no idea when asked what the nuclear triad was, and Marco Rubio, who I don't support either, had to explain it. This guy is an ignoramus. Okay, yeah, third-party candidate. I'd go for the Humane Party candidate for president before I'd go for
I'm sure you
Donald Trump.
would. All right. Hey, Jane and Tom, Happy New Year to both of you. We'll see you in 2016. Thanks for all you do for us. Appreciate it. Up next, Roger Stone. Don't go away. Folks, you probably heard about the shocking new book, Unlikable, The Problem with Hillary, by Edward Klein. Unlikable has already skyrocketed to the top of the bestseller list. It's probably the most powerful expose on Hillary ever written. The author, Edward Klein, wrote the #1 New York Times bestsellers, The Amateur and Blood Feud. Now, in Unlikable, Klein offers a stunning, powerful expose of Hillary Clinton and her floundering race for the White House. With unprecedented access, Klein meticulously recreates conversations and details of Hillary Clinton's behind-the-scenes plotting. Klein also reveals the angry rivalry between Hillary and Barack Obama. Unlikable retails for $29.95, but you can get it with our free offer. So get this almost $30 value free today. Just go online or call the toll-free number on your screen. With the 2016 election fast approaching, you need to get Unlikable and be armed with the truth about Hillary. Check out our incredible offer right now.